Hola, soy la profesora Annette Muñiz y hoy les voy a dar un pequeño resumen de los verbos con cambio de raíz, or stem changing verbs. Así que vamos aquí un momento donde tengo, un momento. I have to share my screen first. Y aquí vamos. Bien, antes que nada, vamos a, oh, wait, this is not the beginning of the And then I should restart my recording, but that's okay. Bien, entonces, ustedes tienen, mis estudiantes tienen esta información en Canvas. You have all this in Canvas. But this is a very quick overview, right? So a stem changing verb is a verb that is not quite, is not really an irregular, because if you know the pattern, you can apply the same pattern to other verbs that are conjugated the same way. So, so then it's not just like in regular verbs, we only change the ending according to the subject. For stem changing verbs, you have to still conjugate the ending, but you also have to pay attention to a vowel change in the stem or the root of the verb. So, bien. So this is an example here of just what is the stem, right? Escribe, or the root of the verb, and the ir will be the ending. And this is a regular verb, as you know, right? So, yes. So what happens? Let's get right into it. Bien. Entonces, hay cuatro, pero en realidad se resumen a tres, right? So the fourth one is just one verb, so it's usually lumped together with the third category. And actually, there's no like real, it doesn't have to be first, second, and third, right? They usually are called to ie, I, and o to ue, and then u to ue. And when I say I and I mean the Spanish E, which is the one with the dot on top, and the E is what you call E in English. Entonces, so we already know verbs like querer, right? So yeah, so let's see. Well, actually, if you missed my introduction yesterday, so maybe okay. So you have to. So how do we do this? Well, if querer is to ie, and let me find my annotating tool here. Right. So we changed this part, right? The endings, but also this is going to become ie in the conjugation of everything. Oh my God, I can barely write here. Except nosotros and vosotros. So nosotros and vosotros, if we use the vosotros, they never change. But everything else is going to have, right? Yo quiero, right? It's not yo quiero, it's yo quiero. And you see here we add, well, es to ie, but the s stays there. So this is what you're adding or changing, right? So, bien. Entonces, nosotros, again, is quer, is not queremos, but queremos, because we don't make these changes in the nosotros or vosotros if we are using the vosotros form. Again, in the Americas or the New World, we normally use ustedes, which is conjugated just like ellos and ellas. Bien. So that will be the verb. So let's see. Cerrar. So this is, and you have all the subjects here. Yo cierro instead of cerro, which would mean a hill. Cerro is a hill. It's not a verb, right? It will be a different word in Spanish. So if you run it through a spell check, if it doesn't consider context, it may say, oh, well, it is a word, right? But you might be saying something totally different, right? Cierras. And then cierra, ella cierra, como, ¿a qué hora cierra Taco Bell? ¡Ah! Nunca cierra. Nosotros cerramos, again, no, nosotros, and I put vosotros here as an afterthought, vosotros cerráis, si estamos en España. Y ellos y ellas cierran. Bien, entonces, both verbs, and again, this is just a way to remember, if you're new to this, when to apply these changes. And I mentioned yesterday that if you well, this is, if you know only English, yeah, again, picture this as a way to remember when not to use or when to use it. And if you know Spanish, or if you know Italian or French, you may recognize this. But if you are a heritage Spanish speaker and you decide to take another language later on, the language may have something like this. Like when I teach French or Italian, I teach the same thing because the irregularities, they have a pattern of repeating themselves, like this, the both or the shoe. If we use the ustedes instead of vosotros, it becomes a shoe instead of a boot. And then, so here, so how do we conjugate? So we conjugate the ending and also the vowel change. So let's do this manually here. And this is again what I want people to do when you do the demo, right? To actually show how. So you have to put the EE and the otro color. Let me choose another color for contrast, right? And then the EE, right? The E changes to EE. And then don't change it in nosotros and vosotros, right? But here again, you change it to EE. And then this is an adverb or AR. So the endings are going to, well, for yo is typically O, right? And then tú is going to be the AR verb endings. And then piensa, right? That you should know already from the regular verbs, nosotros. And then for AR is amos. And then vosotros, and you need an accent here. Ice. And then an para ellos. Y esa es la conjugación. Again, endings just as usual, but then this vowel change. And again, if you know that a verb is e to ie, like let's say entender, then if it's entender, you conjugate for er at the end, and then the second vowel, right? The second E will be the E to IE. Yo entiendo, not entendo. Tú entiendes, not entendes, right? So, and then that's why if you know which vowel change to have, like if I give you a chart, all these verbs have E to IE, all these verbs are O to UE, then you should be able to conjugate them. And that's why it's a stem changing verb is not really irregular verb. Irregular verbs, and again, they can do whatever they want. Although you have the yo go verbs, which is another category that the yo form ends with go. And sometimes you have a stem changing verb that was considered irregular in the yo form because it's a yogo, like venir. Yo vengo is not yo vieno, right? And also tener is not yo tieno, it's yo tengo. And when you have the yo go, the go ending, often you don't do the vowel change. But again, those we'll see. And this is why I have to erase the before moving on, because otherwise I carry the annotations to the next slide. Bien, pensar. So this is just what I typed on the previous one, right? So this is the conjugation in the same font, right? And then you have, this is how it applies to the both. But again, if you use the vosotros, right, it would become, okay, where is my annotation to again? If you use ustedes, sorry, then ustedes instead of vosotros, then it becomes a shoe, not a both. And but which is still useful to remember, so that you don't make the vowel change in the nosotros when it's not needed. And then again, another entender, and this is where you have, so this is what you do to the verb. All the changes are in blue. And again, you have a vowel change in everything except nosotros and vosotros, and then you have the endings. And this is an ER verb, or entender. So the endings, obviously, is not as amos, right? Because that's for adverbs, it's for adverbs. And then, bien. Entonces, so yes, two verbs for one action, right? Usually the first verb is the modal verb that modifies the second one, and then the second one is not conjugated, just like, do you want to watch, right? So in English, there's not a lot of change. So let me show you. But when you have the to in front of a verb, it's the same as having the verb ending in ar, er, or ir. That to in front of it marks an infinitive or unconjugated. Entonces, take out the ending. You can write the pronouns. Again, there's something that I see sometimes in the verb conjugation demos that sometimes people change the order, right? And then they don't write the pronouns. And then the assumption is not that it's first, second, and third singular, first, second, and third plural. So, but that's, and then change the stem, right? And then add the endings. Or you can add the endings and then change the stem. It doesn't matter, but as long as you do each step, right? And then you don't have to translate pronouns here. It's just a way to. Okay, so this is just a preliminary list. You have more in Canvas and in the vocabulary list. There are more than these verbs, so this is just to start to get used to conjugating. And then also this is the verb that is u to ue, jugar. It's not yo jugo, like I juice. And juice as a noun, not as a verb, right? It's not yo jugo, but yo juego. But again, you don't make the change in nosotros jugamos, it's not jugamos, and vosotros jugáis, again, and everything. So, entonces, and para practicar, es siempre buena idea. So I always suggest that you do some on your own, like servir, pedir, right? Empezar, so it will be yo empiezo, tú empiezas, él empieza, nosotros empezamos, vosotros empezáis, ustedes empiezan, ellos empiezan. Servir, yo sirvo, tú sirves, ella sirve, nosotros servimos, vosotros servís, ustedes sirven, ellos y ellas sirven. Dormir, yo duermo, tú duermes, ella duerme, nosotros dormimos, vosotros dormís. Ustedes duermen, ellos y ellas duermen. And again, I'm saying it fast, but the idea is that you do this by hand. So again, a very good strategy that always worked for me. Do this yourself. Do the conjugations by hand. Sometimes you can be looking at the model and kind of copy and then do another one without looking and then check if you did it correctly. So you can conjugate these verbs or any other verbs that is a stem changing verb. And then look online the conjugation chart to see if you did it correctly. And then if you did it correctly, pat yourselves on the back. You're ready for the next verb or verb form. And if you made any mistakes, correct your mistakes. And the action of correcting it usually helps you remember when you do it again. Bien, pues eso es todo por hoy. Y nos vemos. Buen día a todos.